friend.
Welcome to Heavy Metal
History.
How's it going, guys? Welcome to this week's episode of the Heavy Metal History Podcast. This is episode 39. I sat down and talked briefly with Tim Mullaney, the guitar player and vocalist from this band Genocide Pact. They're from Washington, D.C. Their album actually comes out today, the day you're going to be listening to this episode. It's called Order of Torment. It comes out on Relapse Records. Absolutely check it out. It'll be worth your time. It's a fucking excellent album, and I had a good time chatting with him. So enjoy episode 39 with Tim Mullaney of Genocide Pact. Alright guys, I'm sitting here this week with Tim Mullaney, the guitar player and vocalist from the band Genocide Pact. Tim, thank you for doing this, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah. So the one thing we always like to start with on the podcast, dude, is your influences. Like, what's like that one first record or first few records that like really got you into metal?
Definitely the earliest one, probably Master of Puppets, and then like a Best of Black Sabbath not long after that. But for the really extreme stuff, definitely Slayer, Rain and Blood. I think that was the one that really got me into the more extreme end of things.
Yeah, there's always a Metallica answer every time we ask anybody, and that's probably one of my favorite things. Is like we've been keeping this like little mental tally of what Metallica record people say. It's been pretty great. Yeah, what do you think about Slayer kind of calling it quits at this point with their last tour and everything?
I don't know. I mean, it's I guess there's a couple ways. Some people are saying that they should have done it when Jeff died. But, I think of all the big four thrash bands, I think Slayer's been the most consistently brutal throughout their career. Yeah, obviously it's just Kerry and Tom being the original members now. So,
yeah,
I kind of get why it would be a good time for them to hang it up, and Tom Araya's having like back problems and they're all, it's crazy that they're all like in their 50s now. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna go to the DC final Slayer show. The first time I saw Slayer I was 11, so no matter what the deal is, I gotta go see that.
Yeah, I don't blame you. It's kind of weird, man, because it's like, yeah, the band has been around for a long time, but so that's pretty cool. That, like, yeah, Rain and Blood, man, that's a game-changing record right there. The band's done so many different things too, stylistically, so it's pretty cool to hear. That's the first time I've actually heard somebody say a Slayer record for one of their like beginning influences.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's like there's something about just the Kerry King, Jeff Hanneman dynamic. I mean, obviously Dave Lombardo's, probably the best metal drummer ever, and I don't know, Tom Araya's voice just sounds evil. I think there's just like a certain chemistry amongst that band that has a distinctly, like, I don't know, this evil sound to it that, like, I was like scared the first time I heard it. Like, I had to kind of prepare myself to listen to it again the second time.
Yeah, I can imagine, like, because like when I found Slayer, they'd been around for years at that point, so it was less of a shock because I've already heard metal at some point, but I guess back when you would have probably found it, we're probably close to the same age, but yeah, it must have been like completely different, like sounding wise.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what I heard other metal before I heard Slayer, but I don't know. That was definitely the band that flicked a switch, so to speak. That I think I just liked general rock music.
Yeah.
Before I heard Slayer, and after I heard Slayer, I listened to metal. You know, like I liked a few metal bands, but when I heard Slayer, it was like all metal after that.
So did Carrie or Jeff like have any influence in like wanting to get you to play guitar, or like how did that come about as well?
So I was already playing guitar.
Nice.
At that point, I started playing guitar when I was like 9 or something. But definitely like the speed picking. I was still kind of in the early stages of learning that. So when I got into Slayer, that's when I was like, all right, screw all these, scale exercises. I just want to play fast. Yeah, I mean, they were huge influences on me, especially because a friend of mine that lived down the street was a couple of years older, and he got me into Slayer. He played guitar too, so just kind of the two of us would just kind of riff on Slayer songs together. It was
nice.
a good experience.
Yeah, so that they're like, there's some things on this record, man, that like I think, man, you guys like I didn't really like know about you guys before this, to be fair, but this is only like your second album, right?
Yeah.
So give us a little bit of history of the band then, because this is what I'm really interested in, like how you guys got together, like what led you to where you are now, basically, with the new record about to come out.
I guess we started in 2013. So Nolan's the bass player. We're also in a band called Disciples of Christ, which is like a grindcore band, which I've been in since 2010.
Okay.
And Connor was living in North Carolina, so we met him in North Carolina on tour with Disciples of Christ. We played with one of his other bands. Then he moved. I ran into him in D.C., and he told me he was moving up to D.C. from Raleigh. And we were both wearing like Morbid Angel shirts, and like didn't really know that the other person was like into like old school death metal and stuff. Nice. So we just started chatting it up for a while. I was like, hey man, like if you're moving up here, we should try to jam on some death metal stuff. And he moved up a couple months later, and then we started jamming pretty much instantly. And we wrote like 4 songs that summer. Did a demo, and then played a few shows, did some touring on that. Then we did a single for Bad Teeth Recordings maybe a year later, and we did our first LP, Forged Through Domination, that came out in 2015. Did some touring on that, and after a little while we started writing songs for what ended up being on the current record, Order of Torment, which we've been fortunate enough to work with Relapse Records. I don't know, it's kind of
you guys seem to be like pretty consistently active, like between that time of like doing demos and like getting your first record out. Like didn't seem like any downtime between there, at least like from
Hello?
Yep.
So what was that? Your line broke up for a second.
I was saying it seems like you guys were like extremely active, like you never had any like really, I guess, downtime, so to speak, in between like the demos and your first record. Like you guys stayed pretty consistent with like what you were trying to put out and get out there.
Yeah. We've been pretty consistent. There's definitely been, downtime. We all, some of us, play in other bands and have been in school or, working.
Yeah.
So there's definitely been downtime, but I think we've done a decent job in, trying to, keep it going and keep writing and touring and, hopefully we'll be doing even more now.
So when did kind of the writing process for the new record start?
Probably mid 2015.
Okay.
Or so. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like you guys took a lot of time on this record because it sounds phenomenal, and man, all the songs are like ripper after ripper. It feels like.
Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah. I've gotten to listen to it like quite a few times, and I was working on a review for it, and I just never I never got it out in time before like the record, because the record comes out tomorrow. But
right.
So you guys basically started writing stuff over about a year and a half, probably.
Well, I think we had like 2 or 3 songs, or like half of songs that we were sitting on for a while, and then I don't know, a little further down my timeline is a little blurry, but
it's all good.
A little bit down the line we kind of hit like a streak where we kind of polished those songs and then started writing more stuff. And I think this one, difference between this LP and our first one is like the first one was kind of it was really our first batch of songs as a band. So it's kind of put together a little more like, okay, we have 8 songs, let's put them in, let's find the best order for them to go in. Whereas this one, we kind of wrote a little more carefully, kind of did a little more, I don't know, mapping things out, demoing songs, and kind of
really just refining everything.
Yeah, we kind of tried to write this one as if we were writing an LP that had some sort of flow to it. Not super strictly, but at least as somewhat of a guideline to, keep it focused, I guess.
Yeah.
Which I think was really cool. So we spent a little more time preparing this one, just kind of, philosophically, I guess, and then we definitely spent more time in the studio too.
That was kind of my next question, is like, by the time you guys were ready to go into the studio, was every song like pretty polished, or did you guys still kind of like work on stuff in the studio if like an idea came up or had like somebody had a different opinion about something?
Everything was I'd say like 98% polished.
Cool.
Before we went into the studio. There's a few songs that have slightly more experimental parts than on our first album. So there were certain things that we kind of played by ear a little bit in the studio, but not too much. We had the songs pretty worked out, so we could kind of focus more on, getting the sounds that we wanted, and
So now you guys are in the studio. How did you guys kind of track everything out? Did you do everything kind of like in a live setting, or did you guys kind of like do everything one by one?
We did it one by one. We did drums with guitar scratch track, and then did guitars, bass, vocals, and leads. We did maybe 3 days of drums, a lot of days of guitar. I I can't remember all of them. Nolan knocked out the bass pretty quickly. You do it in like a day or two. And then the rest of the time was kind of, I would do leads and vocals, just, trade off after I started getting exhausted in one department, switched to the other.
Yeah, I was gonna say you're pulling double duty there, so it must be like a lot more on your plate as far as like recording goes.
Yeah. Also, I recorded like our demo in that single we did for Bad Teeth Recordings.
Mm-hmm.
And Kevin, who was the engineer for both of our LPs, him and I are good friends. And I having done some like home recording on a much more of a budget studio than Kevin's. It's kind of, we have a good communication point where he's kind of got the mental and technical tools to kind of help get the sound that we want. So the communication's really good between me and Kevin. So I kind of like to be there for the whole thing.
Yeah.
Some people hate being in the studio. I actually enjoy it. Like, it was a weird thing where it's like I spent like 10 straight days almost in the studio.
Okay.
And then like I thought by the end of it I thought I was gonna be all ready to to go home and not be tracking guitars, but it was like the first day that we finished everything. I was like, fuck, what do I do with my time now?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like if you're like really enjoying your time and like you're really like loving working on the record, it makes that time go by like a lot quicker than you expected to. And then kind of once you're done, you're just like, oh man, I just want to keep doing that because it was so much fun,
Right, and it's the thing where it's like half fun, but it's like also it is like stressful.
It's work, yeah.
But it's the kind of stress that like I think when we heard like the first mix of the record, it was like it was all worth it,
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of just in general kind of function on stress. So that was kind of the thing where I was like, all right, this has to be like this has to be like that. And then I think all the worrying that went into it, I think it all paid off. When we heard the mix, it's like, fuck yeah, we did the right thing. So
yeah, the album does an excellent job of like capturing like it definitely has like that old school death metal feel, but it doesn't sound old or feel old, if that makes sense. Like it there's enough on the record to make it sound modern and new and like different from a lot of things.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of what we were going for was making sure that like the drums sounded like drums. I think there's a lot of metal records that just have like super clicky, kind of like thin sounding, like triggered out drums. And I get that like a lot of that kind of evolved out of necessity. Like if you have super, super fast double bass, you can't have like some like Led Zeppelin sounding bass drum.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of our stuff has room to breathe, and I think for our band we make it a point to not use any triggers, and we want the drums to sound real, want the guitar to sound real.
The drumming on this record was one of my actually like stand out and favorite things about it, especially on the track Structural Disillusion. Man, those little like China or like whatever flares he's doing on the drums there.
Oh yeah!
Holy crap!
Yeah,
That was a good one, man. That's probably like the standout track for me for sure. But not even just that track, like all over the album is just like all these little drum flourishes that he does is, man. There's some phenomenal drumming.
Yeah, no, he's an incredible drummer. And he just got a super old school style. Mm-hmm. He hits hard as hell, you know. It's like.
I mean, so with like the death metal sound, like you know, you guys are going for like that old school sound, but I mean, you know, like I was saying, you do enough to like make it sound new as well. How do you kind of like find that balance to do that?
I don't think we don't really overthink that.
Mm-hmm.
I guess. I mean. You know, I think our sound is definitely the sum of our influences, and
I can see that. Yeah,
it you know, we're not trying to throw any necessarily modern twists or anything. I think the way the record sounds is kind of you know, it's kind of. How do I say it? Like it's kind of what I don't like. Kevin just does a really good job capturing our sound,
mm-hmm.
and making it sound natural. But yeah, we don't go out of our way to you know, try to be old school or to try to be modern or, you know, balance the two. It's we just try to write songs that we like, you know. I think they tend to, you know, be more influenced by the old school. Then again, just like as a band, we're all big fans of like rock and roll music that's not even metal. So a lot of our songwriting references, you know, sometimes we're referencing stuff that's not the slightest bit metal. We all love Steely Dan, you know, and if there's a way that we're writing a part, you know, and, you know, we reference fucking Steely Dan or the Rolling Stones or something like that, you know, it's whatever it is, you know.
Yeah.
It's not always referencing metal. It's not always thinking about old school. It's just like kind of like you know, I think we've been jamming long enough that
you guys kind of like know what you're going for at this point. Like you've got it figured out.
You know, not necessarily that we like have it figured out, because I think there's still room to grow or do new things or maybe go in a different direction. But I think it's, you know, got a comfortable writing dynamic, and you know, it's like we just kind of go with the flow and yeah, I don't know.
So with the record itself, as far as like lyrically, who takes care of that end of it? Is it you, or is it another member of the band, or is it all of you guys?
No, that's pretty much all me.
Okay. So when you kind of write, do you have like particular themes in mind for like an overall record, or do you just kind of write different songs based on different kind of things?
Kind of all the songs kind of are all they all kind of look at society, you know, global society from the lens of a totalitarian system.
Mm-hmm.
I try not to write any lyrics about anything that's, you know, fantasy or not actually, you know, taking place on the planet right now. So a lot of it's just about you know, exploitation of workers or contemporary slavery. There's one song, it's about kind of like the U.S. Government has been contracting former like child soldiers from Sierra Leone to be like, you know, military like personnel, essentially like private military personnel.
Jeez.
Just like all sorts of like things that tie into the global economy and like kind of just like exploitation of working class people around the world, and kind of, you know, whether it's, you know, multinational corporations or corrupt governments, kind of powers that be having total control over, you know, most of the world. So a lot of things kind of fall into that headspace, and kind of each song tries to take a different angle or a different avenue that develops from that.
So there's definitely like somewhat of a political, maybe not message, but lean to it, just to like kind of make people aware a little bit of what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, the songs are definitely political, or at least, you know, sociological in nature. You know, we don't necessarily, you know, preach like a political message too much, but like it's like, you know, if people want to talk to us about that stuff, you know, they can. It's just, I think it's, you know, like take a band like a classic band like Terrorizer or something like World Downfall. You know, like all those lyrics are about, you know, corporations taking over the world, and, you know, everybody's getting screwed. Like Napalm Death, you know, all that's Sepultura. Like a lot of those bands, they weren't like in your face political bands, but if you read their lyrics, they weren't, you know, those guys weren't stupid. You know, they were writing lyrics about, you know, very pressing issues that a lot of other bands wouldn't talk about. I think when you're playing extreme music, you're going to be writing lyrics about extreme concepts in one capacity or another, whether you take the satanic approach, or you write about gore, or you write about, you know, fantasy. Those are all different avenues you can take to, you know, for lyrics. For me, it's like I feel like a lot of bands that I grew up listening to kind of took a similar angle of, you know, exploitation, war, stuff that's actually happening on a day-to-day basis, you know.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that a lot of people who aren't like into metal kind of don't realize. They're looking at it for face value. They think it's all evil and, you know, gore, like you were saying. But, you know, also, you know, there are bands that kind of try to talk about like a little bit deeper of stuff and be a little bit more aware and talk about like real world shit, you know. And you know, obviously metal's not for everybody, but it gets a lot less credit than it deserves in terms of like what a lot of bands write about, I think, anyways.
Yeah, that's definitely true, but, you know, also I don't want to sound like I'm against gore or
no, because that's part of death metal too.
Because it is, and I love that shit.
Yeah.
It's just personally not my lyrical forte. If I tried to write a bunch of gore lyrics for Genocide Pact, they'd just suck. So.
Yeah.
But of course, like other stuff, like satanic shit, like Deicide, one of my favorite bands. I love that stuff. It's a different level of, it's a different realm of extremity. And I think when you're playing extreme music, it's going to be one realm or another. It's either going to be fantasy, it's either going to be Satan, or it's, you know, going to be things that are happening on the fucking planet. So that's what I spend more time paying attention to. So that's what I write about.
Yeah, that makes sense. So does any of that have to do with like you guys being based out of DC? You know, I mean, I'm sure you guys see a whole nother side of like America than most people do being in that city.
It's pretty funny. Actually, I just like stepped out on my porch first, or on my balcony for a second. I can like see the Capitol building from here.
Oh wow.
And like the Washington Monument. Like, I was talking to my friend the other night, where like sometimes if it's like a sunny, like beautiful day, I'll like look at like the Capitol building and everything, and I'll like I'll be like, you know what, this is great. Like, DC is like, great place, capital of the U.S. and like feel really good. But then like I'll go home and like watch like some like PBS like Frontline documentary about like some lobbyist or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll go outside at night and then I'll look at the Capitol, like the Washington Monument, and it's got like this ominous like I can hear like the conspiracy documentary like soundtrack like in my head when I'm looking at it. It's like, oh, just miles away, like 7 lobbyists were drafting up a new tax bill or something like that. So I don't know. I mean, I think probably living in DC probably does have something to do with it, but I'm not sure.
Not consciously, of course.
How directly?
Yeah.
I didn't grow up in like a political. Like a lot of people in the DC area work for the government. I didn't really grow up in a family like that. More like a working class family. Even though my parents, were pretty political, but they weren't like working for the government or anything like that.
Yeah. Awesome, man. So the record comes out tomorrow. Anything you want people to know about the record, or like get them to check it out? We can do that right now, and I'll try to get it up today, the episode, just because your guys' record is coming out so soon. I'd rather like have something ready to go, but if I don't, it'll definitely be tomorrow.
I don't know. I don't know what I should say.
I mean, it's out on Relapse.
Check it out.
Yeah.
It's coming out tomorrow on Relapse Records. If you like old school death metal and heavy riffs, check it out.
Cool, man.
Be excellent to each other.
And party on, dudes!